Hello, my name is Catherine from SEB Housing, and this is the information session for the 5 affordable rental units at Truslow residences in Milton. And the purpose of this information session is to give you some background information on the available apartments and also to give you a little bit more information about the application, the lottery process, eligibility for the affordable housing program. So if you have any questions, if you're watching this after the fact, if you have any questions, you can go ahead and email us at info@sebhousing.com, and we'll be sure to get back to you as soon as possible. So SEB Housing, we will be the main contact for anyone who's interested in applying for this opportunity in the beginning. During the application process, before the lottery is run, we are your main contact rather than the leasing office over at Truslow Residences. So the first step in the process is to apply for the lottery. If you're found to be eligible for the affordable housing program based off of what you self-report in your application, then you're going to be entered into the lottery and given a lottery application number. And if you're found ineligible, SEB Housing will be emailing you, and if you have any questions, obviously you should please let us know. The second step in the process, you'll be in touch with the leasing office more, and that's because they will be doing the lease eligibility screening for you, which is separate from the screenings that SEB Housing does. So the leasing office will do what most landlords are doing, background checks, rental history checks, credit checks, that sort of thing. And if you're found to be eligible for their leasing criteria, then you'll be sent back to SEB Housing to confirm your eligibility, at which point you'll need to submit your income information like pay stubs and verifying documentation. To get into this lottery, you don't need to submit any of that information. You just need to self-report your income. So we don't need you to attach pay stubs, or if you're filling out the online application, it's not going to ask you for any attachments. But then later on in the process, we do need to verify that you're eligible for the affordable housing program before you can sign a lease. So if you haven't already, we encourage you to go to our website. So sebhousing.com, you will find a page specific to this opportunity. If you go on to sebhousing.com, you're going to see a section at the top of the website that says affordable housing opportunities. If you select I want to rent, you're going to see a page specific to Truslow residences, and that's going to have a downloadable version of the application as a PDF document, and it'll also have a QR code for the Jot Form link, which is the online application. So we encourage you to complete your application online, but if you can't for any reason, you are able to complete that PDF and send it in to us either by mail, by email, by faxing it, whatever is best for you. If you are filling out that online application, which we recommend, if you fill it out, you're going to get an automatic auto response from SEB Housing saying that it was received. That doesn't mean that we have reviewed it yet, so you're not going to get your lottery application number or anything right away, but you will get confirmation that it was received. And then within a week or two, you will get a more personalized response from us with your name confirming that you applied for the one-bedroom units, for example, and you'll be giving your lottery application number if you have been found eligible. So the application itself is fairly brief. Like I said, you don't need to have any supporting documentation submitted with your application. Lottery applications are due by March 9th at 2 p.m. So the reason there's a specific time on March 9th is because the online application will shut down at 2 p.m. So you're going to want to apply by 2 p.m. if you are interested in doing that online application. You don't need to be a resident of Milton to apply for the lottery. And I'll talk more about that in just a few minutes as well. So since it's anticipated that there are going to be more households, we know that there are going to be, because we've already received more applications than there are available units, we have to have the lottery. So the affordable housing lottery is going to take place in a couple of months, and that's going to determine the order of the waiting lists for these units. And the management team at Truslow Residences has let us know that the affordable units should be available for occupancy soon after the lottery. So once you've completed all of your applicant screenings, if you're one of those top households on the waiting list, there shouldn't be much of a delay at moving in to the apartments. Truslow Residences, so there's a little more information on your screen right now. It's a brand new rental development located in Milton. There's going to be 20 apartments, so it's a pretty small community, and 5 of those units will be affordable, and they'll be rented to households with incomes at or below 80% of the area median income for the Milton, Boston area. The community has underground parking. There's a shared outdoor patio, bike parking, modern features in the apartments. As you can see, there is, for affordable apartments, there are 2 one-bedroom apartments. Those units have a one bathroom, and the affordable price is going to be $2,331. The 2-bedroom apartments, there's 2 of those as well, with 1 bathroom, and the rent will be $2,778. And then the 1 3-bedroom apartment has 2 bathrooms, and that will be $3,201. There is one bedroom that has disabled accessible features as well. Tenants will be responsible for all utilities with the exception of water and sewer. Those are going to be included in the rent, and there is a parking space available for residents for free as well. So parking is included in the rent. So the affordable units at Truslow were selected by the owner, and they were approved by Mass Housing, which is the agency that oversees the affordable housing program. And it's been approved that, these units are not the smallest, they're not all clustered in a specific part of the building. So they're considered to be representative of the units as a whole in this building. And they're not identifiable as being affordable units, from the hallway or from outside or anything like that. The affordable rents are set by a formula that is based off of HUD, so the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development's area median income for Boston or the Milton area. And so it's not based off of any individual's any individual's income, similar to like what a voucher program would be like. The rent could increase once per year if those area median incomes are increased or if the utilities decrease in the area. So any increase would never occur in the middle of your lease. So if you sign a lease for April 1st of this year, your rent is going to stay the same until at least April 1st of 2027. And you'd always be given advance notice of any increase as well. In terms of who's eligible, so the information packet that is also posted on our website listing for Truslow Residences has a lot of this information, but I just want to go over it a little bit here. So in terms of the eligibility criteria for the affordable housing program, there's 4 criteria. The first being that the household has income that qualifies. So under 80% of the area median income is your total household income. Households also can't own a home before moving in. And then for eligibility purposes, you should know that 1-person households in this lottery are not eligible to rent 2-bedroom units, and 2-person households are not eligible to rent 3-bedroom units unless there's a disability that requires an extra bedroom. Another thing to keep in mind for eligibility, and this doesn't come up very often, but applicants can't have financial interest in the development or be a related party. So if you work for Truslow, if you work for the builder, you wouldn't be eligible for the lottery. So just to talk a little bit more about the income limits, the units are being made available to rent at prices that are lower than the very similar units, the market rate units at Truslow Residences. So they're only going to be available to households who have incomes below these maximum income limits that are on your screen right now. So if you're a 1-person household, your total household income would need to be below $92,650 in order for you to qualify for this affordable housing program. And how we calculate your income isn't one size fits all. We do need to count gross income, so not the amount after taxes, but the amount before taxes. And income is calculated as a projection of what your income is going to be for the next 12 months for all household members. So that includes, anyone in your household who's earning a wage, not just the head of household. And the only exceptions to that are minors. So anyone under the age of 18 who's working and earning a wage, we wouldn't count their wage income. And dependent full-time students who are working. So if you have a college student living with you, we're only going to count the first $480 of their wage income if they have wages. But any other income, you want to make sure you are writing on your application, even the excluded income. So if you have, Social Security benefits, child support, unemployment, pension, anything like that, that needs to be written on your application. So yeah, just make sure that you have all of that written down. On your screen, you can also see that there's an approximate minimum income and assets for households, and there's no minimum income for the affordable housing program. However, most management teams, including the team at Truslow Residences, want to be sure that all tenants, regardless of whether or not they are renting a market rate unit or a affordable unit, can afford to pay the rent. So the management team has set a minimum household income equivalent to 2.5 times the monthly rent. And so if you're looking to rent a one-bedroom apartment, if you're a one-person household, your income would need to be between about $69,900 and $92,650. Now it says approximate here because the leasing office has the liberty to confirm or to decide whether or not a household meets their lease criteria or their minimum income criteria. So it's possible if a household has, a lot of money in the bank or assets that they can draw from to pay for their rent, they might be found eligible by the leasing office, even if their income is below $69,900. But households cannot even be $1 above this maximum income limit for their total household income, because that is an affordable housing program maximum and it's set in stone, whereas the minimum income amount is a little more flexible because it is not a program requirement, but rather a requirement of the leasing office. The only exception to this, the minimum incomes, are if a household has a Section 8 voucher, MRBP voucher, some sort of subsidy that is going to be paying part of the rent, the minimum incomes would not apply to households who have a voucher, since the agency who administers your voucher is going to be paying a portion of your rent. There's no asset limit for affordable housing opportunities. So you could be retired, you could have a significant amount of money in the bank. That's not going to prohibit you from being eligible for this opportunity. Even though there is no asset limit, we do still need to collect information related to your assets. So if you have a bank statement, if you have a bank account or CDs or a 401k, a Venmo or a PayPal, anything like that, we do need to collect information because those assets could generate income. If they do generate income, then it will be taken into consideration as part of your total household income, or a portion of that will be any interest that you're earning on those assets. So as I mentioned earlier, you should apply if you are interested as early as possible. It shouldn't take you all that long to complete the application, but when you're filling it out, I do want to mention that you can apply for more than one unit size. So if you think you might be interested in both a 2-bedroom and a 3-bedroom, for example, you should indicate that on your application. There's really no downside of doing that. But there is a potential downside if you only apply for one unit size and then later decide you're interested in another apartment size, because you would be placed at the bottom of that waiting list if you weren't initially, if you didn't initially indicate that you were interested in it. And once you submit your lottery application, SCB Housing, we are going to review it. We'll let you know if anything appears to be missing or incorrect, and you'll be, if you're found eligible for the lottery, you will be sent a lottery application number, which is going to be in the form of a series of numbers. So if you were the very first person to be found eligible for the lottery at Truslow Residences, your lottery application number would be A.001. It's not a ranking of any sort at this stage. It's just meant to be an anonymous identifier, so your name is not called during the lottery, just for privacy purposes. The email that you get with your lottery application number, it's also going to have information about your application. It's going to confirm whether or not what bedroom sizes you applied for. It's going to confirm whether your household qualifies for local preference. So if you self-reported on your application that you believe your household qualifies for local preference, you're going to have to provide verification of that after the lottery. So local preference could apply to your household if you live in Milton, work in the town, or work full-time at a business located in Milton, or if you're the guardian of a child attending Milton Public Schools. Some of the affordable units at Truslow Residences are going to have a local preference on the waiting list, which means that some local preference households are going to get priority for those units compared to households who don't have local preference. That shouldn't dissuade anybody from applying, because we don't know how many Milton residents are going to apply for the lottery, and it also doesn't apply to all units. So just keep that in mind. There's some more information on local preference on the last page of the information packet as well. The email is also going to confirm whether or not you indicated that you needed the disabled accessible apartment, and there's going to be an attachment or a link to a documentation requirements guide, which is basically a form or a list or a packet sort of thing that's going to confirm for you the documentation that you're going to need to submit to SEB Housing after the lottery. If you're one of the top households on the waiting list and you are found lease eligible by the leasing office, you are eventually going to need to submit your income and asset information and tax documentation to SEB Housing. So it's kind of a cheat sheet for what you are going to need to set aside to submit to us later on if you're moving on in the process. And just a reminder that in general, smaller households can apply for larger units, but in general, larger households are going to have priority over smaller households. So the information packet has a lot more information about household types and priorities on the waiting list. But to give an example, a type 1 household, so maybe 2 adults who share a bedroom, there's 2 people in the home, but they're normally would be sharing a room. They can apply for a 2-bedroom unit, but all type 2 and 3 households, so the larger households that have more occupants, are going to have priority over them on the waiting list. So just keep that in mind. If you look at the waiting list breakdown on the information packet, there's a lot more info in there. So the lottery itself is going to be held on March 31st at 6 p.m. So it's going to be similar to this, where it's a Zoom meeting, and I'll be screen sharing the lottery taking place, and it will be held digitally, meaning that the lottery numbers are going to be randomized on the screen, and the results will be shared with you via screen share. Every lottery application number is drawn in the lottery. Sometimes you think of lotteries and you think, okay, there's 5 affordable units, they're going to pick 5 numbers, but that's not the case here, because the purpose of the lottery is going to be to establish an order of priority on the waiting list. It's unlikely that only 5 households will be screened to lease these affordable units. There's usually, people who are no longer interested or people who don't qualify in the end. So, we will need to move further down the waiting list to fill these apartments. So, in general, when you're if you're at the lottery, it is more beneficial if your lottery application number is drawn closer to the top. Excuse me, but it may not be the deciding factor on whether or not you're going to be towards the top of the waiting list. So for example, if a qualified type 1 household, like that two-person couple that I mentioned, is drawn first in the lottery and they've only applied for a 2-bedroom unit, they're still going to be behind all of the larger type 2 households on the 2-bedroom waiting list. So during the lottery itself, you're not really going to know where you fall on the waiting list for sure, because you don't know during the lottery drawing who applied for what unit size and all of that. I still need to sort the results. SCB Housing is going to be sorting the results after the lottery drawing. And we'll populate the waiting list, taking local preference, whether or not your household requires a disabled accessible unit, all of that into consideration. And then we always do our best to send the waiting list over to all applicants, immediately following the lottery. So by the next morning, you will have that information. And then following the lottery, the next step in the process is to apply for a lease with the leasing office. And the management team will have your information after the lottery as well. So they'll be initiating the lease screening process with the top households on the waiting list. And just as they do for market renters, they're going to be doing the same screening for any household who is looking to rent the affordable unit. So credit check, rental history check, all of that. If you're found to be lease eligible by the leasing office, you'll be able to reserve one of the affordable apartments, and you'll be referred back to SCB Housing to then complete your program eligibility screening. That's the point in the process where you're going to need to submit all of that supporting documentation that you haven't provided yet. So pay stubs, other supporting income, asset, and tax documentation, and we will review all of that and confirm whether or not your household is eligible for the affordable housing program. It's a lot of information that needs to be sent in, so if you don't send it all in at first, SCB Housing will work with you and make sure that we get a completed application from you. So hopefully you have all that set aside, but we understand that it might take a little bit of time to get it into us. So if you're found to be eligible for the affordable housing program by SCB Housing, then that top household on the waiting list will be able to sign their lease for the unit that they have reserved with the leasing office. Once the lease is signed, and you move in, there's no additional income screenings until your lease renewal. So if you were to move into an affordable apartment for April 1st, for example, May 1st, whatever it is, doesn't have to be the first of the month either, about 3 months before your lease is set to renew, you're going to have to do a recertification with the leasing office. So they're going to be asking for updated income from you at that point. Once you're doing your lease renewal, if your income has increased, it doesn't mean that you automatically need to move out of the affordable apartment or you need to start paying market rent. There's a little bit of a wiggle room here on the affordable housing program. So if you are, for example, a 2-person household, if you qualified for this lottery having an income below $105,850, that same family can make up to $148,000 the next year at their recertification to remain eligible to rent the affordable apartment at the affordable price. So your income can go up to 140% of the area median income next year to still be eligible for the affordable rent, which is good. You know, if you get a raise or anything like that, you start a new job that is higher paying, you don't necessarily need to start paying market rent. That about covers all of the information I wanted to get through from the information packet. Again, I'm going to go back to the first slide here. If anyone is watching this after the fact and is looking for the link to the online application, it's right here. And that is the easiest way to get or I should say the quickest way to get the application into us and ensure that it's been received. Any questions before I let you go? Again, the deadline is March 9th at 2 p.m. After 2 p.m., the online application will no longer be active. And we look forward to getting your application. If you have any questions for us, if you're watching this after the fact, like I said, you can email us at info@sebhousing.com, and we look forward to getting your application. Have a good evening.